Yay! Yay! It's Wednesday. It's my favorite day of the week. Hi, Normand.
Hi, how are you, April?
I'm doing so great today. I'm so excited to have you on the Positive Effect. So I'll do a little intro for anybody that's just joining us, that's just finding us. I'm April. I'm the founder president of Retail U, and every week I bring on my amazing retail network to have awesome conversations about leadership, retail, and so much more, because I really believe that the positive effect of leadership in any business should be celebrated. And so that's what we're here to talk about. Here to talk to Normand today. I can't say your last name.
Oh, it's Ciarlo. It's okay. Don't worry about
it. Okay. To really learn, it's really to learn about your career, your retail career, and any words of wisdom that we can pull out of you. We've got about 30 minutes. So I'm just going to say, if you're joining us, put your name in the chat. Tell us where you're coming from. We have an amazing following and Retail Global Network family that's joining this live every week. And then, share this. I'm going to say share this with your retail network if you find it, because these are golden conversations that are just priceless mentorship moments. So anyway, I'm going to start off this show. So Normand, I'm so excited you're here.
Yay!
Yeah, I know. I haven't seen you for a while.
I know.
We were just talking before we got on how many companies we'd worked at the same time, but we'd never actually worked together, which is kind of interesting.
Interesting.
So funny.
Well, we same achievement.
Same achievement, yeah. So we want to hear your story. Tell us about your journey into retail. Was it accidental? Was it intentional? How did you start your career in retail?
It's very interesting, and I'll give you context of my former career because retail was a second career for me. So I started my career in the entertainment industry. So I was a professional dancer. And I was always raised in that environment of art and expressing yourself and so on and so on. So retail was never in my vision. I think it was very interesting. I've only learned about retail quite late in my career. So as a professional dancer, so I basically worked for a production company around the world. I did that for 14 years.
Wow.
So I worked in, Atlantic City and Puerto Rico and, in kind of like show review, like Moulin Rouge in Las Vegas and stuff like that.
Wow, I did not know that about you.
That's where I come from. And actually people that actually knows me as a leader today, when they find that out, they go, that makes sense now. They immediately go because I'll speak to that in a little bit, because I acquired a lot of great skill while I was a professional dancer. I was always in a role also where somebody identified me immediately as kind of like the manager or the leader or the line captain, we call them in the industry. So for me, when I decided to leave the entertainment business after 14 years, the first reason I left is because I recognized that I was limited with my talent. Not that I was not a great dancer. I was a great dancer, but that was it. I had one hat. So I was not a singer. I was not an acrobat. I probably could act, never had the chance to do that. So I did recognize what my strengths were and what my talent was. So that was the first bigger lesson that I got from dancing, is that, stay in your lane and grow within your lane. So that was the first thing. As an entertainer, also, you learn a lot about resilience. The idea, you go to an audition, you're 5'9", you walk in, first thing your toe says, no, thank you, next. And you're like, well, I haven't danced yet. Well, you know what? You're too short. Or, so you have to learn about resilience, because rejection was huge. Perseverance, discipline, because as a dancer, even if you have a job, you need to keep training.
Right.
So that's a huge, and I was one of those guys that actually was a little bit of a natural. So I learned my technical side of dancing. I learned it while I was performing. Okay. So it was very interesting. So it's not like I studied and I got the job. I kind of got the job and actually perfect my skills.
That's kind of like retail. You do the job and
exactly.
Then get the job.
Exactly. So, and there's also the team building, because as entertainer, you travel the world. You're an ensemble. You work with other people, and I think that's very, very important as a leader also, or moving into retail,
Yeah.
because there's retail of one is not that much. Retail is is really a team effort and a team success. Either from your customer or from your colleagues.
So how did you go from that into retail though?
Yeah. So this is where one day Norman decides to quit dancing, comes back to his hometown of Montreal, has no clue, has every ex-dancer what I did. I went to hospitality. And one day I met somebody who is Michael Eskenazi, who owns Monsieur Felix and Mr. Norton Cookies, gourmet cookies.
Yeah.
And I kind of like told him, I says, listen, I want to do something. I want to go. I want to, and he goes, well, you're in show business. You should go into retail. He says, because that's like being on stage all the time.
Right.
And I went, oh, it's kind of like being on stage all the time, right? So that's how I did it. And, first thing he says, if you're interested, I said, I have a job as a manager for one of my shops. He says, and that's where I got retail in me.
Wow.
I mean, so I started selling gourmet cookies, and I was like, and because I had transferable skills, and I was also very eager to grow. So I had the opportunity to immediately identify myself as somebody that has potential. And I also, had the opportunity to show my strength. So because I was new to the market, and it's a small world, as you all know, retail is not that big of a small
Montreal
world.
is really small, yeah.
Yeah, very small. So I immediately said I want to be identified as an expert at something, right? And I think that's one of my advice that I give to people. Leverage your strength. I think there's going to be plenty of people in your life that's going to tell you what your opportunities are. Believe me, for anybody that's starting into this business, you're going to get a lot of feedback. You're going to be told what you're good at, what you're not good. But as an individual, as a leader, leverage your strength. Identify to what you're good at. And somebody
when I was at Apple, actually, I think it was my best friend who works at Apple. She said she always had this question that she would ask people she worked with. She's like, what do you want to be known for?
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
What do you want to be known for? And then really make that your thing, so that you're not just somebody in a crowd. It's kind of like what you're saying about being a performer. Like, what is your superpower? What do you want to be known for?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that it's like that legacy that you want to have, right?
So keep going, because I'm so interested in this. So you started off with gourmet cookies, and then what happened?
So basically, Eager Bunny, I did a lot of franchising because it was a franchise. You learn a lot from franchising because you have to do business plan. Then I went to a retail group called United Cigar Store, who actually was owned by Hachette, a French company. And I was owning all the travel and tourists, all those shops that you buy T-shirts and magazine in the airports and the hotels. Yeah. So I was a district manager for them. And over there, I learned buying and merchandising. That's where I got my growth. Then I joined the Gap. I was there for almost 10 years. I would say that's where I identify myself as what a leader could be. I think before I was always a manager, and Gap, and I've worked for Lloyd. So it's been very interesting because he was talking about the LDP, and I went through that program, and it is really about finding who you are. I did not know I had the leaders in me, because I don't think leader is a position. I think it's something that you are.
Yeah.
And that's really them that actually allowed me to actually come out of my shelf a little bit and say, yeah, I am a leader. Actually, I can actually mentor and inspired and being empathetic and all that stuff. I think Gap did that for me.
I think Gap is such, there's a lot of us that went through Gap at that time, and what we got out of it, it built that foundation. And that's why I'm so passionate about leadership development, because if I hadn't had that at that time in my career, I don't know if I would have ended up where I was, right? So
yeah,
we were very fortunate.
I still refer to my management skill cards that we used to get. And I think you were at Banana Republic, you had the same thing.
Yeah.
Because that was like the toolkit that you can have as a manager. And, if you had an issue, you could go back to your skill cards, and then you could actually help yourself and develop. Yeah. So after that, I went to Loblaws. I did identify through my career that I was not, my strength was not operation. So again, a lot of vulnerability and being able to say, what am I good at? What am I not so good at? And I think on your last podcast with Lloyd, he said, we're generalists. I mean, we wear many hats. We do HR, we do merchandising, we do buying, we do We do people, we do whatever, right? We do it all. I think we're very, very, we're kind of like the jack of all trade, but master of none a little bit. But I think it was really interesting, and I knew that I had an opportunity. So I went and launched Joe Fresh with Loblaws.
Oh, wow.
When Joe Fresh was just kids.
I used to buy it for my kids all the time. I loved it, Joe Fresh, when it first launched.
And we were just opening up in Superstore, and that was, it was very, very, and they needed somebody from retail. So I left Gap to go to Joe Fresh, and I learned to work with groceries and own operators, and I learned a lot about operation. Very interesting to try to convince people to give 6,000 square foot in a superstore because they see you coming with your clothing and they're used to sell food, right?
Yeah.
So you had to add a lot of influence in order to do that. And then I went to Apple. And at Apple, I learned how to say no. That's when people said, and you're laughing because you know exactly what I'm saying.
Unpack that a little bit.
So I'll unpack that. So basically, I worked on the wholesale side. You work on the retail side. I was on the wholesale side. Yeah. I launched the Apple Solutions Consultant program across Future Shop and Best Buy at the time. And as you know, Apple, the strength of the brand is really strong. Everything that they do is meticulous, very detailed. Lots of Kool-Aid, like I said, and you've got to respect it because it is the strength of the brand. And Apple is a product company, innovators. So when I joined there, I'm kind of a creative guy. So I went in there and I walked in there changing the world. I was going to change Canada. And of course, every time I came out with a great idea, people would say, no, we don't do that. And then I would come out with another, no, we don't do that. And then actually at one point, people were always coming to me say, why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? And then one day I woke up and I said, you know what? I'm just going to say, no, that's not who we are. And then people say, really? And then I would explain why. And they would go, oh yeah, that makes sense. So I always say that what did Apple taught me? To say no. That was like the best thing.
Which is a good leadership lesson, actually, right? It's a very positive thing, because if the brand is very clear on what they're doing and also trying to keep people on track to execute, which I think we learned Gap with the masters of execution back in the day when I worked there. That's where I learned it. I think it's keeping people on that path. And sometimes, I have a creative daughter who went through a creative high school, kind of dancing and all that. And I used to be doing projects with her, and I'm an operations person. I'd be like, don't start another idea in the middle of this idea. We got to finish it and execute it to have excellence, So it's so funny. I love that you shared that.
No, but I think that for us, it's also important. And especially when you work with big brands, you've got to honor the brand when you work for them. You've got, I use the drink the Kool-Aid analogy, and I know that this is kind of like cliche, but if you don't, you need to ask yourself why you're there, because the brand is really, really strong. That's what carries you, and that's the success of it. And also you have to remember that brands like Apple, and especially if you go dig and you take the Steve Jobs journey, you kind of understand why you want to respect it too.
Yeah.
And then after that, somebody had the bright idea to say, I was traveling the world, I was traveling a lot, spending probably 75% of my time in airport and plane and Uber. We didn't use Uber then, we used taxi. But anyway, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And then Holt Renfrew came to me and say, we have this store and we need a general manager. And it was a Montreal store. And I was like, oh my God, I could have an office downtown and not have to travel, and that's my first thing. And then I said, oh yeah, I'd love it. And as I was actually saying yes to the job, I said, oh my God, I've never done luxury. I've always done specialty retail. And so I said, maybe I'm not going to be good at it. But honestly, it was the right fit for me. Turned out to be a great organization for me to be at. Lots of growth. And then I was presented with the opportunity to build the largest retail department store in North America of 257,000 square feet.
Wow.
So we've got 6 floors of retail here in Montreal. With all the major luxury brand that you can't imagine. So it's been quite of a journey. And as a leader, this is where I was really able to apply my lessons, because we merged 2 culture. For the people that may not know Montreal, we had another store called Ogilvy, who was also a luxury store, and we had Holt Renfrew. For many people know this. So what we did, there was an acquisition that happened, and we had to merge 2 culture. one thing that was very interesting is Ogilvy had a brand. Ogilvy had actually a brand of it's been around for 150 years, and Holt's been around for 187 years.
Wow.
So merging two brands with such heritage, people are very attached, customers are very attached. So you have to be very, very sensitive to that. So it was not about the operation. It was really about the perception of the brands. And employees were also engaged to a certain brand. And now we were going to bring them together. So as far as the leadership exercise, let me tell you, that kind of puts you through the test.
Yeah, 100%.
So all of my skills that I took out of show business, resilience, discipline, perseverance, I put them, I use them every day. I pull them out of my back pocket every day because it was really a time for me. So I think that when you go from one job to another job, you need to actually fill in your toolkit with a couple of skills.
Yeah.
And just put them in. You might not use them every day, but I see ourselves like walking around with toolkit, with tool belt, with a bunch of skills that you need to use at a certain time.
Yeah, 100%. So what have you, let's dig in. This is such an amazing story. I love bringing you guys onto the show because I have just learned so much more about you. And now it makes sense. It totally makes sense. I totally get you now as a leader.
Good.
So I'm going to dig into a few more questions. I love, getting things out of you that you can share these words of wisdom because this is really inspiring to other people. So what have you overcome throughout your career in retail that you have, can share maybe some pivotal moments or some, things obstacles? You talked a lot about resilience, right?
Yeah.
And then what did you learn from it? So some moments and what you learned from it.
Well, I think what I did the most is because I did not come to retail as, somebody that's been already in retail for 40 years. And like I said, my retail career is very short compared to many people. So I had to actually had a very strong strategic plan of growth in order to get to where I'm at today. So I think what I overcame is the adversity of saying, well, you need to be in the position for 9 years before you do that. And if you say that to me, I'm going to do it in 9 months. Honestly, I'm the type of guy to say, you don't say can't, because if you say can't to me, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'll lose sleep at night for it, but I'm going to prove you wrong. I think that for me, what was mostly difficult is to walk into an environment that sometimes there might have been judgment about your skill sets, because a lot of time I was interviewing for jobs at the very beginning in retail, and people would spend hours to talk about my career as a dancer. And I had to be the one to say, hey guys, I'm interviewing for a job. Can we actually talk about the job I'm interviewing it? I know my dancing career sounds very exciting and fun, but it was a little bit, there was a lot of preconceived ideas because my resume did not fit the bill. I did not come from an environment where I had a lot of credential from a schooling environment. So I had to overcome that because I did not come out with, an MBA or anything like that. So for me, I really learned on site. And that's something that I actually had to put in my strategy to say, do not allow yourself to be complacent about growing, because otherwise you'll never get to where I want. So it was not really, I didn't feel that there was people stopping me. I think it was my own journey. I had to overcome my own plan to get to where I'm at today. And that requires a lot of self-reflection, a lot of vulnerability, a lot of time to say, oh, I really screwed that one up. But, I'm a firm believer that when I hire or when I actually want to work with somebody, I usually ask most of them not about their success, because I think success is fantastic and we need to celebrate that.
Yeah.
But I usually ask about their failure, and I want to learn how they pick themselves up, because that's what the true character of real leaders. It's how you actually overcome and actually be able to pursue. Because as a leader, you got to be there in order to enable your follower, right? And
100%. Somebody asked me that yesterday. I was on a radio show yesterday, and somebody asked me, and it wasn't a retail show, but they asked me about obstacles and what are you overcoming? And I was like, well, obstacles are going to be there. You better embrace them, number one.
Yeah.
And then you better figure out how to overcome them. And a lot of us in retail shared this same thing. It's like, retail was a job that you could get into, which was easy with not so much education, let's say.
Yeah.
And so I had to overcome, when I became an executive, not having that education and feeling like I was qualified to be in that room
Yeah.
because I had all of this hands-on experience and I could speak to the frontline workers' experience to help the rest of the team really have that insight. And that itself is so valuable. Sometimes just as valuable as, you know, a business degree or whatever, because you have that customer experience and the employees telling you the feedback, right? So you got to remember, I think anybody watching this that wants to grow, listen to what Normand's saying and what I'm saying. It's not always about the education. I promote education. I have an education company, right? But I promote development, really self-development and becoming aware, so that you have this plan, and don't wait for people to do that. But don't think you have to have this degree either to go to move up into retail, to have more influence. You want to move up, it's because you want to make a difference, right?
Yeah, and I will add to what you're saying, April, and I think a lot of people here may have actually witnessed this, or if you haven't, you need to think about it, that nobody's going to give that development to you. Nobody owes it. Your development is your own. You need to own your own growth. I've so many times I have people walked in and say, so what's next for me? And I'm like, well, what do you want to do? Like, why am I supposed to be the one telling you what you want to do? I mean, that's not my job. My job is to enable that environment that you feel. I mean, I'm happy you're asking me what's next, because then obviously I've created an environment where you feel you can grow, which as a leader you need to do. But on the flip side, you need to own it. Like, you know, and I think a lot of people, I find that especially in retail, because it's a very fast moving environment, a lot of people feel entitled to maybe the next position. Well, I always say, you know, when you get your first job, start working towards your next job and start acting like your next job, because once you're going to get to the next job, you're going to know what to do, and then you're not going to fail. And then as soon as you get the second job, start acting as the third job, and that's how you grow, right?
100%. When I took on the US as part of my role at David's Tea, I asked for that and I created that. I learned a very good lesson early on in my career. When I was actually at Banana Republic, I was an acting store manager for a season, and then they posted the job and I was like, hold on a second. I just got through Black Friday in a $20 million store. Why are you posting the job? I was like, because I wasn't asking for it. And I called the regional director that day and I said, you're taking that post down, and I'm actually taking this store on. And after that, it was a really big lesson for me, because I was like, nobody's going to give it to me unless I tell them I want it, and I'm going to ask for it and tell them what I'm going to do and actually do it. Right.
Yeah. Because you owned it, right? It's the addict a lot. I think that's it's a huge lesson in life. And it's not only just in retail, it's in everything. If whatever field you're in, growth, your own development, the key word in there is own. You need to own it. You need to strategize. This is a plan. It's you can't wait at home till somebody emails you or texts you or call you to say, oh, I got a job for you. I said, then you're going to take the job because it's a job. But is it really what you want to do? Is it part of your strategy? Because that's where you're going to become a very good leader. I mean, you can. Otherwise you get stuck into what you may not want to do, and I think that's where it will limit your own personal growth, right?
Yeah, you talked about like your journey from professional entertainment and dancing into retail and these different roles, right? So your leadership must have evolved over time, right? From when you look back to where it is, and you talked a little bit about Holt, about that whole influence. So how has your leadership evolved over time to where it is today?
I think that for me, I think the leadership, I'm much more focused. I think that I'm not chasing after everything. And I think that one thing that I learned through my leadership journey is that I'm a provider and I'm also an enabler. So instead of doing, I decide to enable. So if I can create an environment where people can actually grow themselves, I allow them to do their job. I'm not a very micro leader. I'm not a micromanager neither. So I realized that every time I had an opportunity to change job, or within the same job, I had a new role or a new challenge, I allowed myself to reinvent myself every time that I had that opportunity. So when you do that, you grow. You actually allow yourself to say, okay, so I did this the last time, and I'm not so proud of a few things, and I'm very proud of others. It goes back to, I said, leverage your strength, right? So carry the strength through, and the few things that you're not very proud of, use it as an opportunity to grow, right? And just say, okay, I'm going to reset here and I'm going to change it. So I think that for me, it was really a question of saying that I have to be very self-aware. I really, truly believe in emotional intelligence. And I think that there's a lot of things that I think that people that have that EI, they have the ability to reinvent themselves easier. Because they don't rely on technical or too much fact. We really rely on the person. So we're really great leader from the head, but the balance is really that you have to be a leader of the heart, and the heart is not always towards others; it's towards you, right? So I think as a leader, also I grew. One thing that I also learned is I put myself forward in a lot of situations. I did put the mask on before the kids, right? I did that, and I learned the hard way. I really learned the hard way through health issue and work-life balance. And I know everybody's talking about this today, especially with COVID and the pandemic. But really, honestly, as leader, if you don't think of yourself first, there's a huge chance that your stamina will eventually give up. And I say that the best leader out there. And actually, we have a lot of great example of great leadership through the pandemic where people had to make a hard decision and lead. You've got to think of yourself first. And I think that to me, that was the growth. The growth was probably, again, going back to own your own career. I've actually owned my own growth. And also, I became more self-aware.
Well, and I think a lot to do with it. I think about and reflect on this all the time. Is like, if you're in the service industry and you're in service to others and you're always thinking about everybody else before yourself, that's where you cannot have that balance, right? So that's really important that we are conscientious of, like, we are driven by being in service and helping others. So we have to really think about, we have to help ourselves first as well. So I understand that. And that's why we launched a mindful meditation course last year, because it's not a leadership skill, but it kind of is, because if you're not like going silent, you're not getting centered.
It's so huge, because I've just gone through a meditation workshop, I think 2 weeks ago, that was offered to me, and I meditate. And that's one thing that I started doing probably too late in my career, but I do. I was the only guy there.
Really?
And I was like, I understand I understand I'm married to a man and everything, but I said, what's this? I mean, this is kind of awkward. Why am I? And actually, the leader of the meditation said that there's still a lot of stigma about men's leader meditating. They don't admit that it's actually good for you to do, unless they do it and then they hide. And then one day some of them will go, oh my God, I could see the benefit of it. And I'm like, well, then teach it, talk about it. I mean, if as a leader, that's what you do. So I think I understand what you're actually saying too.
Yeah. So we're coming, Will, I'm just looking at time.
Yes.
We've got like 5 minutes left. Okay.
Perfect.
So what else do we want? What words of wisdom can Normand pass on to this group in terms of any advice to be successful? In today's retail environment, you've got a wealth of experience. You've shared so much great insights. But today, retail leaders today, we're in a very different time. Back in the day, we had traffic walking in, conversion was good. As long as you were converting on the traffic, we had abundance of traffic. It's not like that today, right? It's a very different environment, especially post-pandemic. So what words of wisdom or advice can you pass on to this, audience?
This one's very, you hear it all the time, but stay true to yourself. Don't try to be somebody else. I mean, we're all, April is here to actually educate, and I'm here to tell you what I did. You may not repeat what we did, but you need to do your own journey. I think that's the first thing I would say. And one thing else, and I talk a lot, and I will actually bring this up for anybody that actually watched RuPaul or RuPaul Drag Race. Great example of a fantastic brand. As a persona, being a drag queen. The guy has actually now a global brand across the world with his show, and he's opened up a lot of minds and everything. And if everyone watch the show, there's 4 words that he uses all the time to actually qualify his contestant. Is they actually needs charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent. So I'm gonna leave you with this. So to be a great leader, you need charisma. You need to have a je ne sais quoi that people will want to follow you. And don't make it about a thing. You may not know why they follow you, but they're going to follow you because of who you are. The uniqueness, I just say it, stay true to yourself. You may read a lot of books, you may actually listen to a lot of podcasts and everything, but you need to do that with your own identity. Nerve, well, if you don't have nerve in retail, I'm sorry.
You're dead in the water, yeah.
You're dead in the water. Yeah. So basically, yeah, you need to plow through, and you need to be able to, like I said, if you're courage, not getting, right? Yeah, if you don't have the job, ask for the job or whatever. But you need to have a lot of courage and talent. I think really honestly, you need to add talent every day. I mean, I've actually had quite of a journey, and it's not over. I'm actually transitioning career right now, and I'm actually going on a new chapter. And I'm a little bit nervous about it, but the reason I'm doing it where I am at what I'm doing in my life is because I want to learn more. So I would say talent is very important. That's the base. That's really what you need. And like I said, if you lack a little bit of talent, make sure you have a gimmick, because actually you're not going to get through it either. So I'm going to use RuPaul's word of advice, and I'm going to go with the charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent. And I said, and go for it.
I love that, Normand. That is so good. Like, I feel like I'm on one of those conference calls back in the day where I'm just writing notes. I'm going to write that one down. So after I've watched this, I'm going to go back and actually
it's not mine. Write it down. It's not mine. You can have it.
I know, but here's the thing, right? This is what I love about talking to so many different leaders. It's like, you learn, and the common theme I think that I always find with all of you that come on this show is learning and growing is part of who you are to become the leader that you can be, right? And that starts with a self-reflection, a self-awareness. And so that's just brilliant. And it's not always our ideas, it's just sharing other people's ideas. So, in the essence of being like a teacher and a coach, that's what you just did. And that makes you a great leader. Mm-hmm. So I'm just so grateful that you shared that, because that's really good. So what are you doing now then? You said you're transitioning a little bit.
So actually, as we speak right now, this is my last week at Holt Renfrew. I've been here for almost 9 years. It's been one of the best ride of my life. Feel really grateful of everything that I've been able to do with opening the store and growing the people and getting the team ready for the future. But now I'm on the pay it forward mindset. So I'm actually going into consulting. So being from Quebec, being bilingual, I think there's a lot of opportunity right now, especially with the pandemic and everybody's trying to actually reinvent themselves. So I want to be part of the reinvention. So actually, that's what I'm doing. So I'm here to pay it forward to organization that actually wants to try and change their mindset a little bit and work to maybe operationally also.
Oh, that's brilliant. Well, I am so excited to follow your journey and see, the amount of people that you're going to impact and support and help along this, because you've got so much great years of experience and I know that it's going to benefit, whether it's in retail, whether it's with other businesses, but I just wish you the best of success. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for taking the time out of your day and joining the Positive Effect. I've had such a positive experience with you today, and you can go back and read all the comments afterwards in the feed. There's some really great comments from people. So check that out. But yeah, it was great having you on. So thank you and good luck with everything.
Thank you. Love you and take care of yourself. And keep it up. Keep up the good work. Keep up the positive effect. We need that. We need the positive effect.
We do.
Thank you very much, April.
All right. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Let me just end this. Ooh.